let's do some parenting book reviews. Today, I want to share 5 books that have made me a better parent. Now, I'm only a parent to a 2.5-year-old and a 7-month-old, but that still makes me a parent. I have some experience with toddlers and babies, and I'm really excited to share these 5 books with you that have made all the difference to me when I've been parenting my kids. First of all, I love a review. I love a review about food. I love a review about movies. I love a review about books. I will watch you review anything. Maybe you're the same as I am. If you are, leave a comment down below. But I love to listen to people review things. So today I'm doing my own book review and I'm very excited. I'm doing 5 mini book reviews. If you would like to see more book reviews, movie reviews, any kind of reviews in the future, let me know because I will do them. I love reviewing things. If you are new to my channel, my name is Abby and I would love if you would consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. Now, I feel super passionately about these books that I'm about to share with you guys, and I'm really excited to share them with you. I hope they make your parenting journey better. I hope that you pick them up and read them yourself. So let's just get into it. The first book I want to talk about is called The Montessori Toddler. So I read this book about a year ago. I actually listened to most of these on audiobook. So let's just get that out of the way. As somebody who's running around constantly with my kids, I don't have a ton of time to read, and when I do, I tend to fall asleep. But if I can listen to them like podcasts, if I can listen to them as audiobooks, I can listen while I am doing something else, which is huge. Highly recommend that if you are also a busy mom. But The Montessori Toddler was high up on my list because I like the Montessori method, especially for younger children. I really like the idea of giving my children independence that makes them feel good about themselves, not forcing independence onto them, but the kind of independence where they can accomplish things on their own and then they feel proud that they were able to do so. I also just love the way that they feel about children's emotions, feelings, that they're little people. And that is really the biggest takeaway I took from the Montessori Toddler. I took a lot of really interesting tips and tricks about ways to entertain my children, about ways to avoid screen time, about ways to give them projects and to have them feel like they could do things themselves. But honestly, the most important takeaway for me from the Montessori Toddler was the idea that your children have a reason for feeling the way that they do about things. There's always talk about kids tantruming and toddlerhood being horrible and terrible and hard. But I think the thing that gave me such a good perspective about my child entering his toddler years was the concept that he is physically capable of doing a lot right now, but he's not physically capable of doing everything. And he's not mentally capable of knowing what's dangerous and what's not. So that is a really confusing state to be in as a person, is wanting to do things and constantly being told no. The idea that your child knows what he wants and maybe isn't able to communicate it effectively, or that he would like to do something and he thinks he can, but then mommy and daddy are saying, no, you can't. We are, as parents, establishing boundaries for our children that are super important. And as a gentle parent, but not a permissive parent, I think that those boundaries are really important to enforce in a kind and respectful way for your children. But that doesn't mean that your child is initially going to understand why he can't do those things if he's physically capable of doing them. And I think that's given me such a great perspective on my son. I can look at him when he wants to do something and I can feel a tantrum coming on. Why is he tantruming? It's not irrational. It's entirely rational. He wants to be able to do something and he physically can do it. But I am saying, no, you can't, for a reason he doesn't yet understand. And his, brain isn't really developed enough yet to understand those things. So I don't find that my children tantrum because I understand why they're having the feelings they do, and we can work through it together. Now, when he gets out of control, I've looked to Montessori Toddler to give me tips and ideas for how to work with him in those moments. So if he's having a real tantrum, really like getting out of control, really not able to understand what's happening, that's a moment where I say, okay, you can go to your room. I will be here waiting for you. I'm ready to talk to you when you are ready to calm down. And it's not a timeout. It's a place for him to relax, and then he can come out of his own volition. Now, if he does something wrong, we sometimes do say you need to go to your room, and when you're ready to come out and be kind and be sweet, we are ready, we are excited to see you. And when he comes out, we don't get angry at him for what happened. We welcome him back because we say, okay, you understood why you had that repercussion, that consequence, and now we are proud of you for accepting that upon yourself. But it's such a good mindset when you look at your kids and you recognize that they have feelings and emotions just like everybody else. They're just not developed within what we need to function in society as safe human beings. But the emotions are the same. And if you can address those in that way, the relationship between you and your children is so much more positive. The second book that I would recommend is called Siblings Without Rivalry. Now, before we had our second baby, I wanted to read a few different books about siblings. It was so important to me that our children be close. And look, I know you never know as they get older how things will change, but there's a lot you can do as a parent to encourage good relationships between siblings. So I read a book called Peaceful Parents, Happy Siblings, and it talked a lot about this book called Siblings Without Rivalry. And so I bought Siblings Without Rivalry next, and I realized that was really the book that I should be reading. Like, that book had everything I wanted to know in it. So this book is great because it gives you scenarios to read about and listen to. And it shows you the way that you can respond and what that response will cause. And it shows you different ways that you can react and how that can encourage better relationships between your kids. First of all, I, as a child and with siblings, have been able to look at the way my parents parented and how that could have caused some issues or positive things. And I've been able to say, oh, okay, so I can take that away, or I maybe don't want to do this. Then looking at my sons, I can see how beautiful the relationship is developing. And so much of that is because of the way we have incorporated those ideas into our parenting. So it really at this point is about my older son to my younger son, right? Because he's the one who has agency. Instead of getting angry at him when he hits his younger brother just because he's doing it out of usually frustration or curiosity, instead of saying like, why would you do that? How could you do that to your brother? You're a bad boy. We never say any of those things. It's always, oh, we don't hit our brother because that's not safe. That could hurt him. And we love him so much, don't we? We just love him. We want to protect him. And always reframing it in a totally positive way for him makes it so that he doesn't want to hit his brother. Like, he loves his brother so much and he just wants to play with him. And of course the baby is obsessed with his older brother. And that's just an example of ways we encourage our children to be close to one another and love each other. But in the book, it does talk about, you know, if your child is having negative feelings towards another child, that is normal and that is okay. And you need to accept the feelings without accepting the actions. So if as our children grow, my older son feels negatively at a certain point about his brother, we can say, yeah, it makes sense that you feel that way. I get it. And you're not crazy for feeling that way. Now that we know that, we can move forward, right? And not always delegitimizing those feelings, because those feelings are natural. So that's a really great book, and I really highly recommend it if you are struggling with your children's sibling relationships. The third book I want to talk about is called Take Back Your Family. Now, this book I almost wouldn't even recommend as a parenting book. I just think it's a great book to read generally. And it's really changed the way that me and my husband think about family as a unit. The thing that I just love about this book is how it talks about how everyone needs to work to make the family function, and everyone has a unique and important role. We live in a day and age where family is kind of like, you go in, you take what you need, and then you go back out into the world. And he says that is not how family should be functioning. The family is what life is for. That's where you develop your purpose, your meaning, and it's for the family itself. And then when you go out and get married, then you start a family of your own, and it should be the same thing. It's not like everyone just gets what they need out of the family and goes off and does their own thing. The family is in and of itself important. And I think that's such a beautiful concept. There's so many wonderful pieces of advice in this book, like such a good read. And one of the things he talks about is just not putting your mission ahead of your family. Family is mission. And he talks about how when people put their mission ahead of their family suffers. And that isn't good. Like, it doesn't make it worth it to be successful outside of your family if your family is suffering. And I totally agree with that concept. Now, he also gives like practical ideas for things you guys can do as a family. And so one thing that we totally want to institute as our kids get older is the concept of having like family dates. And what he means by that is every person in the family rotates having a date with every other person in the family every week. So you have an hour with each person in your family every week. So like my husband and I would have an hour, and then the next week my son and I would have an hour, and then the next week my sons would have an hour. Like it would be something where everyone is getting an opportunity to spend time individually with one another, so all of the relationships develop. I love that so much. Check out this book, seriously. If it's not on your reading list, add it right now. The fourth book I want to talk about, which is imperative to read, truly, is called Being There: Why Prioritizing Motherhood in the First 3 Years is So Important. It's something to that effect. I will post a picture. But it is so, this book is like required reading, in my opinion. It really talks about the importance of mothers being present for their children in the first 3 years of their life and why that matters. I think we are seeing such problems in our children these days and in people, like our anxiety levels, all of that, because we don't have present moms. Moms are not available for their children in those first 3 years, and they are not giving them what they need, and children need their mothers to thrive. And this book really breaks down scientifically why that is the case. The last book I want to talk about is called Hannah's Children. Now, this isn't so much a parenting book, but it is about why it's so important to have so many children. And of course, I loved this book. It totally changed the game for me because it talks about the women quietly defying the birth dearth. If you didn't know, we are in a social decline. People are having 2 children or less, which is not replacement rate. And the question is, why are some women having 5 children or more? Why do some women choose to do that in a society that says that's weird, right? Like having more than 2 kids nowadays is considered odd. And the question is why? Like, why do these women choose to have more children in a day and age like this one? Now, as somebody who wants to have a big family, this book was really inspiring to me. And it reminded me and kind of bolstered me when it comes to why I want to do that, why I want to have so many children. And one of the things I loved in this book, now there's a ton of things in this book, it's all interviews with women who have had so many children. One of the things I loved in this book was the concept of children being a stage of life versus a way of life. In today's day and age, we view having children as a stage of life. You have your children and then they grow up and you can go back to what you were doing before, and finally you're back to how it was, and this is just something you do for a little while, and then you can have the fun that you were having before you had kids. These women talk about having children as a way of life. This is something that they do. Like, this is what their life looks like. Once they have their children, they have many children because that's what they are planning to spend their life doing. And then once those children are grown and have their own children, the moms are involved with their grandchildren. And I loved that concept of like, this is not just something you do to get it done and over with. This is what life is for and what life is about. And I just found the whole book so inspiring. I definitely recommend it. So those are the 5 books that have totally improved my parenting that I wanted to recommend to you guys. If you have some good parenting books, please drop them down below. I've read a ton, but I would love to read more. I love parenting books, seriously. And if you read all the way to the end of this video, leave a book emoji so I know that you did. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye!